gonna shut up just a minute. Oh, you're good. Okay, you can go. You live, Jenny.
Sorry. Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on the FM 107.7 New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. Remember to like us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. I'm Jenny Nicasio along with Sean Kelly and Jason Petro. Happy Thursday, everyone.
Happy
how's it
Thursday to
going?
you.
Happy Thursday.
Great. Gettysburg, PA is one of the most active paranormal hotspots in the world. You know that, right?
Oh, definitely.
Well, this is the place where 94,000 Union troops under General George Meade clashed with 72,000 Confederate soldiers under General Robert E. Lee in what became the bloodiest battle of the Civil War. From July 1st to the 3rd, 1863, more than 51,000 Americans were killed, wounded, or went missing. No reason why it wouldn't be one of the most haunted lists on travel destinations list. Gettysburg has become a place of mysterious and unexplainable stories of out of the place noises and smells and sights that are out of time. And wow, they're strange experiences. The area is well known for its paranormal activity. More people died young and suddenly under tragic circumstances at a high level of emotion than anywhere else in the entire United States. For the next hour, we're going to discuss with author and owner and operator Mark Nesbitt of Gettysburg Tours. Welcome to Chasing Prophecy, Mark. Is he online? And there he is, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Sorry it took so long, buddy. We were having a little technical difficulties. This is a new system that they were trying out, and hopefully it'll be a good one for us. So I'm so glad you're here with us tonight.
Well, I saw it was hat night, so I figured I'd do a little shameless
Great.
Here.
Hey, it looks good, brother. Looks good.
Yeah.
We got our Jason's there in the background. He doesn't have his photo up, but Jason, you want to say hello?
Hey, hello. Nice to meet you, Mark. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Well, Mark, I know that you have been a busy boy in the last, how many years has it been?
You know what? We just, actually the books first came out in 1991. And then we started, or the first book came out in 1991, Ghosts of Gettysburg. And then we started the tours in 1994. So we're in our 27th year of giving tours.
Wow.
Of Gettysburg.
That's amazing.
They're good tours. They're good tours.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you guys aren't too far away there in Pittsburgh. You could meet us sometime and take a tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been going there for 20 years. For 20 years, I've been going to Gettysburg. And I really enjoyed up there. It's my home away from home.
Mark, tell us, okay, I've been doing a little bit of research on Gettysburg. And when I watch some documentaries and I read your books, I get like a twinge in my gut, my heart, because I believe that these guys, they think they're still there. And that's probably why it's so haunted, because their lives were just extinguished so quickly and so bloody. Why don't you give our listeners who aren't from Gettysburg or Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania, or that live out in New Orleans and all the other, states, tell us why you believe. I know what I just said, but give us some of the background about Gettysburg.
Well, the Battle of Gettysburg, that was a very good summation that you gave. The Battle of Gettysburg was the largest, bloodiest battle on the North American continent, as far as we know it, in recorded history of the North American continent. I say that because there may have been Native American battles that were bigger. In fact, we think we tracked one down in Gettysburg. It's almost as if Gettysburg was was cursed to be a battlefield at least twice. At any rate, the Battle of Gettysburg took place about in the middle of the American Civil War in July of 1863. Civil War started in April of 61, ended in April of 65. And so the Gettysburg was like the watershed. The Confederacy was winning many, many battles. Chancellorsville in Virginia was the most recent before Gettysburg. There was a decision made at the highest levels of the Confederate government to invade the North. Now, the Confederacy was fighting basically the same way we were fighting in the American Revolution for separation, for independence. They just wanted to break away, secede from the Union. And but so they were fighting mostly but in doing so, they ended up having two huge armies in Virginia, for the most part, consuming everything down there in terms of food and horses and cattle and grain. So that was one of the reasons why they determined that they needed to invade the North. So at the beginning of June 1863, Robert E. Lee began his march northward. He got into the Shenandoah Valley, marched northward, and then spread out over the once he got past the Mason-Dixon line, spread out over south central Pennsylvania, heading northward towards Harrisburg, the capital of Pennsylvania, and eastward towards York and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, kind of like the breadbasket of the North. And at this point, it was a gigantic raid. They were pulling in as much food, as much livestock, and many wagons as they possibly could to take back down to Virginia to help supply the South and the armies for the next year. Well, Gettysburg, if you look at a map, it's got about 10 or 11 roads that all converge a block of the center square of town. You have two huge armies wandering around in that area. They're going to bump into each other someplace. And when you have all those roads that converge, that place is probably going to be pretty likely a place that they're going to touch. And that's exactly what happened on the morning of July 1st, 1863. It started off as a small battle between Confederate infantry and Union cavalry out west of Gettysburg. And from there, it just snowballed. By the time the day was over, there were a lot of troops committed. Robert E. Lee had ridden in and saw what was happening. He did not want to fight a battle. He wanted to get out of Pennsylvania if he could. But he saw what was happening, and on the first day, it was a Confederate victory. So that was what, probably changed his mind to stay there and fight it out for the next 2 days. And on the second day, he attacked both ends of the Union line, which was in kind of a fishhook shape, and was unsuccessful. Caused a lot of casualties, and of course, he's always watching his ammunition and food and everything for his army, and he realized he had a couple of more days left to fight on the next day, July 3rd, an assault to the center of the Union line, which we know now as it was a catastrophe. 12,500 men went into the charge. 2/3 became casualties, killed, wounded, or missing. So the next day, he anticipated a counterattack. It never came, and he decided to say, "Get while the getting's good." And he marched back to the Shenandoah Valley, basically a fighting retreat the whole way, and left. The two armies left about 51,000 casualties in and around the town of Gettysburg, which was approximately 2,400 people at the time of the battle. In fact, they're even less than that because most of the men left with their livestock to get out of town when the Confederate Army was coming. So you had then they had, I mean, operations were going on. It was men were suffering and dying throughout the whole month of July and into August, and then of course finally in November they were still burying soldiers in the newly formed National Cemetery when on November 19th, Abraham Lincoln came to Gettysburg to dedicate the National and where all the Union soldiers were being buried at the time. Unfortunately, the Confederate soldiers were not allowed to be buried there. They were the enemy. Many of them killed the same soldiers that were being buried there, and so they were left out on the battlefield until the earth finally, or remains were finally exhumed and taken south. And that all of these things combined, a storm, the high emotion, the life or death situation, the bodies buried in unconsecrated graves. It seems to have made the perfect storm for ghosts. And that, I think, is why virtually right after the battle, we started, people started seeing ghosts or having strange experiences at Gettysburg.
Yeah, when you have those burial grounds that are they don't get their final resting, I think that has a lot to do with it. They're not settled. They don't feel at ease, the spirit. That's what I think.
It's one of the reasons, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to a couple documentaries this weekend, and there's just one after the other of stories about these ghostly stories. What kind of gets me is, I don't know if Sean or Jason have heard of it. They actually see the soldiers like they were like you and me, some of these people. But I have a question, Mark. You've been doing this for a while. How do we know that some of these aren't just actors put there in different places to, take the identity of a spirit? Because you're laughing, Sean, but they said they don't look like ghostly figures. They look like regular people, but they see
They
these.
do.
So how do you know for sure that, Mark, that they're not actors?
Well, we don't, but I always ask because we do have a group of reenactors that comes to Gettysburg at any time of the year, and more so around the anniversary of the battle. Sometimes they have a reenactment. I don't know if we're going to have it this year, but they didn't last year, but they may have it this year. And so you get a ton of people dressed up as Civil War soldiers, women and children. And so that's my first question: is when did you have your vision? And that was that. If they say around the 4th of July, I explain that to them. But some of them have experiences in December or January, and no one, there's hardly even any visitors in January and February. But that being said, there are also other things that happen. A lot of people want to know, they always ask, have you ever seen a ghost? And you have to say no, but that doesn't mean you haven't had an experience. All the senses are involved. In fact, I've collected well over 1,000 stories. So that gives me a body of data that I can mine. And one of the things that I've discovered is that the most common experience at Gettysburg is auditory. You're going to hear a ghost before you see one. That's about 60-70% of all my stories. Only about 10% are visual. But you'll also have olfactory. People will come into the shop when I'm doing autographings, and they'll say, I had a weirdest thing. I'm walking down the street and I smelled rotten eggs.
Yeah.
And and they said, what's that? And I said, well, that is the smell of black powder, which had sulfur in it, a large amount of sulfur in the black powder. Black powder was a propellant that soldiers used. So they got a whiff, probably paranormal, of that black powder. They'll smell old-fashioned perfume.
Yeah. What was that smell that the women used to carry on them when they would go through, because to get rid of the smell of the death? It was some kind of
rose water.
Well, rose water,
lilac water. That you can't. That there were so many, literally tons of flesh rotting out in the hot sun, and you couldn't run away. You couldn't remove yourself from it. So they would just carry around handkerchief soaked with lilac water or rose water, and they'd be out shopping and they'd be like, I'll take 2 tomatoes, and all of a sudden the smell would hit them and they'd clap that over their faces so they would smell that. So people will smell that now, old fashioned perfume. They're like, I haven't smelled that since my grandmother was alive, that type of thing. And other things too, being touched, being tapped. I've had my sleeve pulled. I've been tapped on the back 3 times in a row, 3 separate times within 30 seconds of one another. So it's all and cold spots. There are people walking with cold spots. So all the senses are involved. Seeing a ghost is just 10% of all the experiences.
I was listening to, I don't know if you guys, Jason or Sean, heard the story of the man who's an investigator that went into the woods and he was singing. He had I think it was a harmonica, and he was playing Dixie. Did you hear the story, Mark, about the Dixie? He's playing it, and he got a really bad, felt like his stomach, like someone shot him in the stomach. Did you ever hear that story?
We've done that, to kind of entice.
Oh yeah, you did it?
Yeah,
okay, tell us about it.
Well, we've done a couple experiments. We have our ghost tours leave out of a Civil War era building. So it's kind of nice when you own one of those, you can lock it down and that there's nobody in there. And so then you can start experimenting. And I had a local broadcaster who was a skeptic, a complete total skeptic. And he was interviewing me in the house. In fact, he was grilling me. He said, "How you make your living at this so you could fake all this stuff?" I said, "Well, I could, but I don't. I want to know what's going on here." And so we went up to the most active room. He had, unbeknownst to me, he had brought a boom box, and he said, "I'm going to play something. I'll see if I can get anything on my recorder." So sure enough, he had a recording of Dixie, and he played it. He started it, and he got to one point, and then he stopped it. But he kept his recorder going. And when he played, we couldn't hear anything. But when he played it back, sure enough, we got a few notes in there. I mean, it didn't sound like somebody singing Dixie, but we got notes, and there were no notes heard.
That's cool.
The other thing is that we've also found out that we had, while he was there, one of our kind of walk-in ghosts was a priest. We had wounded soldiers in our house, and he was apparently coming in there to take care of them. And he said, "Let's try something else." So he said he got his recorder going. He started saying the Lord's Prayer, and he got to a certain point and he stopped. And sure enough, when we played it back, we got a few words that sounded a lot like, and it's not perfect, but it's like, "Thy will be done."
Oh,
okay? So, and this is, I don't mean to sound like it happens every day, but it almost does in our building. We have a lot of activity there, and we have gotten pretty good at gathering it together. That's called EVP, which I'm sure it's the electronic voice phenomenon, which you don't hear what's being recorded, but something's being recorded. So,
Sean, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, right on the money with this. I would like to share two of my experiences up there. When we were at the main monument out there on Little Round Top, we sat there one night, and it was hot and then 90 degrees, and I actually smelled the gunpowder and coming up from the hill, from where the Alabamians came up the hill. I actually heard and smelled the gunpowder, and I heard shots like little BBs. But you were talking about enticing the spirits. A couple years, I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, we went up there. My mother gave me a CD of the Chieftains, okay, which is an Irish folk group. And we went down to the peach orchard. And that was day 2 of the battle. The 69th and 68th Irish Brigade really got their butts kicked that day. And one day, and when we were there, we started to play this Irish music. and you could just see all the haze, all like I'm going to say ectoplasm or whatever, orbs, stick figures, everything. It was crazy.
Mm.
It was, and to me, that was like a good experience for me when we played that. And we also played it at the 69th Monument, and we got a lot of activity over there too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to do it. The Irish were known for their feistiness and their they didn't call them Fighting Irish for nothing. And
Damn straight.
that was that and emotion has something to do with the hauntings at Gettysburg, because we leave. I believe we leave an energy. I mean, what else can ghosts be but energy? That's what everything is. That can be perceived. And so when there's an outpouring of energy, in other words, when you know what's on the line, number one, your own life, number two, the life of your country, I think you exude a lot of energy. And when you put it all together and you have 2,500 men in a brigade and they all are charging together, certainly it's going to leave a mark. And there are various theories about that.
Yeah.
One called the stone recorder theory, or the quartz. We know we have a lot of quartz in Gettysburg, in the granite that's there, and it's all over. Those stone walls and Devil's Den, and all the buildings have brick made and also stone foundation. So that may have something to do with it too.
How many? I know there's a lot of different. There's the Orphanage in Gettysburg that's haunted. There's a Jenny Wade, the young woman who was shot by a stray bullet. Have you been to? Do you have any stories regarding those to add to our show tonight?
Yeah, I've done investigations at both of those. And Jenny Wade's house is interesting because what we found out is there. We took a medium in. Periodically, we'll use sensitives, and she, as soon as she walked in the door, she said, "I feel as if there's an unfinished mourning, mourning here." And now she didn't know anything about the history. She'd heard about Jenny Wade, but she said it was an unfinished mourning. And so we went all around the house, got down into the basement, and there's a chain that goes from one pillar into the stone wall. Okay, so it's not going anywhere, even with traffic outside. But it has a reputation of moving on its own. And as we're going through and we're getting ready to leave, all of a sudden we see the chain start to move, and it moves in an odd way. It's not like someone touched it so that it would do a wave. It just moved like it was solid, like it was all soldered together or something. And I said, "Carol, do you see that?" She goes, "That's Jenny's father." And it hit me like a ton of bricks, because what she didn't know is that Jenny Wade's father was kind of a ne'er-do-well around town. And at the time of her death, he was incarcerated.
Oh.
Okay? And so he may not have heard about it for a week or two afterwards that she had been killed. And he certainly didn't get to participate in any of the or anything like that. So there's the unfinished mourning that she
absolutely.
So,
and he's like wants to protect his daughter. And I think that's probably why he's sticking around, because that he feels that since he missed out on it, that's his job to do.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Before we dive deeper into this topic, I want to pause and mention my good friend, author C.L. Gabber. She's the sci-fi author of The Ascenders. It's a series that I definitely think you guys should check out. If you don't, I think you're going to be missing out on something great. I think it's great for spring break. I'm going to give you a little bio about the story. Scientists agree the human mind doesn't fully form until you're 25 years old. It begs the question, what would happen if we were to die young? Where would we go? Where did they go? Walker Callahan went to sleep in her own bed last night. She woke up somewhere in the middle of an adventure of afterlife time. No rules, no fears, no limits. Why? You can't die twice. Great topic for what we're talking about. Ascenders High School for the Recently Departed has been called an epic and best paranormal book series ever. Original and unputdownable. Available on Amazon. Check it out. You can go to our website, chasingprophecy.com, and there's a link there that you can subscribe on Audible or buy the book on Kindle or paperback. Okay, guys, back to the story. Yeah, Jenny Wade, my children went there and they took some photographs. And the one photograph, which was really cool, and I can't find it, I'm getting hell for it, was a necklace. And I don't know if you know the story about the necklace in Jenny Wade. I asked John and Jason, they don't really know for sure if right, guys?
No, I don't.
But there was a necklace, it showed up. There was nobody on that picture. He just took a snapshot, and there was a necklace like hovering in the sky, like in the air. Did you ever hear anything about the necklace?
No, that's new. Well, I don't get a lot of stories from Gettysburg anymore. I get letters from a lot of people, but the stuff that's happening now in some of these places, I don't get a lot of it. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I've been trying to find the picture. I had it, and I hope it didn't get pitched because it was really cool. And I think I don't know. I thought it was a really neat picture, and I wish I had it. A lot of things do show up on photographs at Gettysburg or not.
Oh yeah. Well, we get the ubiquitous orbs, and to me, the jury's still out on the orbs. A lot of people will send me a picture that they took out their window of their car, and they say, look at, and it's full of these orbs, and they'll say, look at all the orbs we got. It's all soldiers. I could have gotten some more pictures, but it was raining out. So,
Yeah, that could be an orb too. Jason, what do you think about this?
Oh, well, I haven't been to Gettysburg yet. We're actually planning on going really soon here in the spring, which I'm pretty excited for, hearing all the stories and, the people seeing spirits and everything. I was curious though, with the spirits, are a lot of them just mostly residual spirits, or do they take notice that there's, living humans around, throughout the year?
We have both. And just as a couple of examples, first of all, one of the very first stories I ever heard at Gettysburg. Of course, I was a park ranger there for a number of years in my youth, and a young woman came into the visitor center one morning at 8 o'clock. We just opened, and the first thing she said is, "Are there any ghosts here at Gettysburg?" And apparently, other people have been asked that for a number of years, and our bosses said, "Look, tell them no, because there are too many other things to talk about." So we'd look around, we say, well, no, there aren't any ghosts here. And then we'd look around, see if there are any bosses looking at us. And we'd say, why? What happened? Because we wanted to get the story. And she said, I was at Devil's Den early this morning, about 6 o'clock, when the park first opened. And I got into Devil's Den and kind of got lost. And she said, what? So I got out of my car. It was a beautiful morning. And I got up on top of the rock so I could look around. And I had my camera, so I figured I'm going to take a picture. So I had the camera up to my face, and all of a sudden, I got this feeling that I wasn't alone. So I turned around, and there was a man standing there. And he said to me, what you're looking for is over there. And he points, and she said, I turned around, and then it hit me. How's he know what I'm looking for? So I turned right back, and he was gone.
So was he looking like a normal person? Like he wasn't like a ghostly vision?
That's what we asked. We said, what did he look like? She said, well, he looked kind of like a hippie. He had long shoulder length hair, sloppy hat, dragged clothes. His pants were all chewed off at the bottom, and he was barefoot.
It could be a
Well,
soldier.
it's interesting because what she did is she described a Texas soldier. Okay. And the first Texas is the unit that is credited with and most associated with taking over Devil's Den from the Union Army. Okay. Wow. And the interesting part is I got another report about the same guy that a woman saw. and he spoke to her. So that's your interactive or intelligent haunting. Now, we also have residual hauntings there. And maybe the most common one, believe it or not, is the Phantom Regiment or the Phantom Battalion. And I have probably half a dozen accounts of people seeing what they think are reenactors maneuvering out in the battlefield. And the one that really sticks in my mind is of two people, a father or a mother and a son, and they're driving. They turned left to go past the peach orchard to go towards the wheat field. Just as they came over the ridge, they saw a unit of soldiers marching out in the fields. Now, the dog is in the back seat, their dog, and the dog is growling. And this is this is important because they're watching, and the unit is marching around and doing maneuvers. And they watch for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, here comes a couple of joggers, and the entire unit just vanished.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That
That's
is
cool.
The dog stops growling.
That's cool.
The dog is important because humans have a tendency to just blow it off, say, "Oh, wow, that was my imagination. Had too much to drink, that kind of stuff last night." And but animals, dogs, they
absolutely they know that.
They just alert to that. So
they can sense it. Yeah.
That's he saw it. The dog saw it because as soon as it disappeared, he quit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's an indication that really happened.
There was a paranormal investigator that I was listening to on a show, and she said that she could hear a soldier whispering, "I'll shoot you. I'll shoot you."
Possibility.
And, yeah, she was scared, and she got real sick in the stomach too.
People hear a lot of stuff that they'll hear bullets whistling past them. They'll hear the scariest part is I've accounts from waitresses. Some of the historic buildings have been turned into restaurants, and waitresses will say, "I heard my own name whispered in my ear." That would
freak me out.
That would
totally. So you have all these deaths in Gettysburg, and that leads us to my my next topic I wanted to talk to you about. A lot of children were orphaned, and the orphanage in Gettysburg, the one that was run by Rosa Cartridge. Is that how you say her name? Cartwright? Carmichael. She was evil woman who abused children and locked them in small corridors, like rooms in the basement. And she also had a little henchman, the stick man. Now, did you ever witness that? I mean, did you ever see the stick man or see anything unusual there? Did you, have you gone on tours in the orphanage?
Yes, I have. But I think the interesting part about that is I think that experience with the orphans was one of the reasons I got into the paranormal, the ghost hunting.
Explain that to us.
Well, when I was with the National Park Service, I used to live in the National Cemetery Lodge. Right inside the National Cemetery is a building, and that was lodging. So one day I was doing something very unusual. I was cleaning up after myself after lunch. Okay, as being a bachelor, you know how it is. And so as I'm walking from the dining room into the kitchen, all of a sudden I heard the strangest squeal. And I stopped and I said, "That sounded like a baby crying." And of course, I'm trying to figure out, I never heard that before in here. Was that the pipes? No, that was a baby crying. So I put my dishes away and I'm trying to figure out what in the heck, where did that come from? And so a couple days later, in the coffee room, I mentioned it to my colleagues. They said, "You need to talk to such and such who lived there before you." So I talked to her and asked her, and she said, "Oh yeah, I used to hear a baby crying all the time in there. I heard it so often that one time I started running up the stairs and I forgot my kids are already grown." And then I was thinking about it. Okay, why would people hear a baby crying in that building? Not just me, someone else. That building is only a few doors up from the orphanage.
The orphanage.
Yeah. So you have it just the orphanage is just down Cemetery Hill from that building. So that may very well be what I heard, but it got me kind of on a quest to kind of collect the folklore, the stories, the ghost stories of Gettysburg.
Yeah, they're all connected. They're all like any kind, like it's like a mystery. And that leads me to this podcast. And if you have a fascination with mysterious crimes, unsolved mysteries, perplexing cults, and all that fall in between, I want you to follow the Girls of Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet. Their weekly podcast covers the horrible happenings that occur across the nation. Melissa and Whitney provide an insightful yet eye-opening approach to these crimes. And their laid-back conversation style makes you feel like you're hanging out with one of the girls with a glass of wine with your closest friends. They cover new cases, which is really cool, and they really investigate these cases every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasts like Spotify, platforms you can find anywhere. And they link to the Cults and Crimes Cabernet, and you can find the link on our website at chasingprophecy.com. So I want you to check them out. There's a little sample podcast. They're going to, if you're really into mysteries and crime, this is the podcast for you. Yeah, when we think about Gettysburg, now I have a fascination for history, and that's why I like Gettysburg. And I also like Bushy Run Battlefield. And I was wondering, Mark, I don't know if you've ever been there. Do you think they might have some hauntings? Have you done any research on Bushy Run Battlefield?
I have not, but I have heard that it is active. It has hauntings there at Bushy Run. My good friend Patty Wilson, who is also a co-author of mine, has done a lot of work in Pittsburgh and between Bedford and Pittsburgh of haunted sites. Mm-hmm. And she has several books out on that type of thing. She co-authored a book with me on Haunted Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and I was checking that out.
Yeah, and the Heinz Center there in Pittsburgh is reportedly haunted. So you have a number of places out in that vicinity. We did a weekend investigation in the what was it called? The Mountain View in Greensburg.
Mountain View, yeah.
Yeah, it burned down recently, I guess, and that place was pretty active. We had a lot of interesting information come out of that too. So,
yeah, I do have a question, real quick. I have a question. Yeah. Okay, over there, since we are out of New Orleans, okay, so that's in the state of Louisiana. Was the Louisiana Detachment up there? Something about the Tigers?
Oh yeah.
What's up? What was up with that?
Well, two things. One is particularly interesting to me because one of their positions that they took was right near our building, just half a block from our building, the Louisiana Tigers, Hayes Brigade, and we have a ghost, a resident ghost in our house that two people have seen who literally have almost bumped into, had to walk around him after they turned off all the lights. One is my daughter, and the other one was a woman who was working for us, who was a medium. And through EVP, we got the information that he was from Louisiana. He was guarding some of the Georgia troops that were in there. They both described him as being a linebacker size. He's a big guy. The one woman was also military, and she said he went on kind of on guard when she came in. So he's still there. And his name was Edgar, but that's not a name that he likes too much. So, but at any rate, so he's there. Now, the other interesting thing about the Louisiana Tigers is that they made an evening assault on East Cemetery Hill, which is probably 500 yards from our building. And it was pretty vicious fighting there, but the whole unit made that assault in the dusk. They fought against artillery, and it got pretty vicious. When you have to attack artillery in the Civil War, depending on what kind of of shell they're using, sometimes there's not a lot left of you.
Okay.
Hey,
I
Mark, has
thought they
anybody
were-
ever got hurt there from one of the ghosts?
Anyone got hurt?
Yes.
No, our ghosts are pretty. They're
Pretty.
yeah. You know what? A lot of people are worried. They say, "Am I gonna, get
Yeah.
harmed by a ghost?" But I've never.
Never.
There's only one. All the stories I've collected, there's only one where someone got hurt by a ghost, and it wasn't in Gettysburg. It was down at Fort McHenry.
Okay.
So, Mark,
yeah.
just a quick question. So, since I'll be a first timer there when I get to go up, what would you say is the top 3 most haunted areas of Gettysburg? Like,
Yeah, I get that a lot, and it changes. Some years I hear there's a lot of activity at Spangler Spring, a lot of activity in the middle of Pickett's Charge there at the Point of Woods, but consistently, the 2 sites that seem to never fail is Devil's Den, and then right next to it, as you're going on the tour, right next to it is the Triangular Field.
okay.
And those
Yes.
2 places, you can get. I mean, I got my very first EVP, so I was a rank amateur. Didn't even know what I was doing out there at the Triangular Field one night. And then we went out there. I'd written a book on the 15th Georgia, and they fought in the Triangular Field. In the 15th Georgia, I had the roster of the guys who got hurt and killed out there. So I started calling off the roster of these guys, and I was getting, yep, oh, military answers for their to make sure that they were counted.
Nice.
Okay. There's one story that you had. I think it's from your books. Can you talk about the Gettysburg College and this incident with the ladies going down to the elevator? To me, that is very, very interesting. Can you explain to our viewers what happened?
Absolutely,
This is a
yeah.
cool story.
Yeah, well, Gettysburg College, there were only 3 buildings there at the time of the battle, but they all the biggest one was Pennsylvania Hall, which was a dormitory and classrooms, and they most of the operations went on in the bigger buildings, so they were doing amputations, and the lower floors became operating rooms. And I had heard a story from some college students that were there. I interviewed them, and they mentioned a couple of people, of administrators who were working late one night, and it turns out I knew the administrators too, and they were on the 4th floor, and it was getting late, so they decided to pack it in and go home. So they got on the elevator and pressed the button for the 1st floor, which was the exit. The elevator went past the 1st floor and down into the basement. The doors opened to a scene of horror. They actually descended into an operating room of the Civil War era, and they described this as men lying around in the corners waiting to be operated on,
Oh, wow.
a doctor with a blood-stained apron on, he had a saw in his hand. There was a guy who was getting ready to work on a makeshift operating table. And of course, they're punching the buttons to try and get out of this man-made hell, and the elevator wasn't working. Finally, the doors closed, and they went up to the 1st floor and left in a hurry. They went right over to the security office and reported it. Now, I knew there was a security guard too, so I talked to him, and he said, yeah, we went back over there again, got on the elevator, went down to the basement. The doors opened, and he said, I thought I was going to catch a fraternity doing a prank, but there was nothing. It was all clean and pristine. And the interesting part about that is a few years later, I was autographing at Gettysburg College, and a couple came in, and they said, we know those women or the woman that you wrote about. I said, oh, you know such and such. And no. Oh, you know the other one? No. They gave me the name of a 3rd person who had the very same experience, except she wasn't working for the college. She was an accountant, and had this. I interviewed her over the phone. She had moved to Denver, so I got in touch with her, and she had the same experience.
Oh, wow. That's cool. And how about the Blue Boy?
Well, yeah, that's another famous one as well. The Blue Boy, that is associated with Stevens Hall. Now, Stevens Hall was not there at the time of the battle, but it was built in 1865, right after the war. And now this is kind of a more or less up and to a point. We're not really sure how he got trapped there, but the rumor has it that it was a cold winter night, and he had run away from the orphanage. And the women, it was a girls' prep school and dormitory in Stevens Hall at the time, and they had hidden him out on the ledge when the headmistress came to find out about him. They had heard that they had a child was hiding there, and so they hid him out on the ledge on this cold winter night, figuring they'd only be talking to him for a couple of minutes. Well, it was over an hour, and they finally went up, threw open the window, and he was gone. It was like he vanished, and they couldn't find him outside or anything. Now, fast forward 100 years, women in that room in Stevens Hall will be studying, and they'll catch something out of the corner of their eye, and they'll look out and it's a third floor window, and they'll see the face of a small boy floating outside their window. And either they'll run away or they get up and try and go over and look a little bit closer, but he vanishes after a while. Every account of that had this little boy's face with a bluish cast to it, as if he'd been out in the cold way, way too long.
Wow.
Very, very. Your stories are awesome. You know, everything that you have written.
Thank you.
I really enjoy those. I really do.
Thanks.
And I enjoy Gettysburg a lot. But to me, whenever I go up there, I'm with Pittsburgh Paranormal Society, and we like to go to Sachs Bridge. To me, that place, Sachs Bridge and Culp's Hill, to me are the most haunted areas up in Gettysburg, especially Culp's Hill. That's creepy.
Well, there was a lot of battle action there. People don't realize it, but that was some of the longest fighting, prolonged fighting in the entire battle. They fought through the almost up to midnight on July 2nd, and then started up all over again at 4:30 in the morning at first light on July 3rd, and then fought till almost noon. So a lot of fighting there, and a lot of well, there are pits still there where they had bodies that were buried and then exhumed. And so, you know, that's an active place too. I've gotten a lot of EVP out there.
Hey, Mark, are you doing any other writing?
Yeah, in fact, I'm working on Ghosts of Gettysburg 9.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're trying to convert my all my ghost books into audiobooks. That's
awesome. You should do that.
Yeah, I'm working on another work of fiction. I came out with my first work of fiction last year called Die Again Once More. And it's paranormal, so it's got the paranormal thing and life after death and all that other stuff. And so, yeah, and if anybody's interested, ghostsofgettysburg.com. That will tell everybody about my books, and they can purchase the books there, and also about the tours that are starting on April 10th.
Definitely. We will definitely tell our link it. We're going to link it on our website too for you.
Oh, great. Thanks.
I think it's I can't believe you've done 9 books. Are you getting any kind of documentary? Did you think about doing that?
Well, I've already done that. That's has been on TV. The Ghost of Gettysburg two series.
Okay.
So
and where can you see that at?
That's pretty much on YouTube now.
Oh, it's on YouTube. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was on TV. It was on the.
And it's called The Ghost of Gettysburg. And if you put your name in, you'll be able to find it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So our listeners can check that out. That would be great. Well, we're going to have to call it a night soon. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mark. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
it was
you,
great
Mark.
talking to you guys. Yeah,
Yes,
Definitely,
thank you.
we'll definitely have to have you back on. Maybe after the guys go there, you guys can converse about it.
that sounds
Cool.
good.
Maybe they can hook up with you and go on tour with you.
Well, you know what? I don't take tours.
Oh,
I
okay.
just write the stories. My guides do much better.
Okay. Well, they'll have to check you out there.
Yeah.
But thank you again for joining us tonight. And if you go to our YouTube channel, our Pittsburgh Paranormal Society, you can find some clips that we have on there and learn more about our hauntings. And if you think you'd be a great sponsor, check us out. And you can go to Audible and check out Audible and get a free subscription on our website. But please check out my author page at J.E. Nicasio and check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, guys. Good night, everyone. And thank you again
everybody.
for
Thank you.
tuning
Good
in
night,
to
everybody.
Chasing Prophecy.